Hello everyone, welcome back to another episode of Magick Witchcraft and Occultism. This is episode 8, part 7 on accounting and the field journal. Now, before we get started, I'd like to remind everyone to please like, share, and subscribe and click the little notification bell, as it would really help, as I'm tired of getting lost in the YouTube algorithm. Also, since this episode is so long, I'm going to leave timestamps below, so you can just kind of skip ahead of the introduction if you don't want to listen to the whole thing. Okay. Also, I should mention why this episode is a week late. And that's for good reason. I accidentally deleted all of my work and my script, and I had to start from scratch. Yeah, we all make mistakes. So it took about 4 days to write it the first time. It took 4 days to write it the second time. And also, this is not necessarily the last part to the field journals or accounting as a whole, but it is the last one I'm going to be doing for a little while. There are other journals I can write about and talk about, but I'll come back to these journals in a little while, a couple months probably, because I feel like these journals are starting to become a little repetitive and monotonous. I wanted to hold your attention and give you these lessons. We'll be moving on to episode 9, which will be on the 3 minds, and that is going to take me probably a week or so just to gather all the info. Let us begin. The Herbalist Field Journal. The Herbalist Field Journal is an indispensable tool that contains a wide range of knowledge on different uses, everything from the benevolent uses of making medicine to a more malevolent use of making poisons, to herbal knowledge that is used in magical and spiritual paths. Also, I'd like to mention that the Herbalist Field Journal was a forerunner to all medicine texts or medicinal texts on medicine, regardless of the cultures that they were found in. In the hands of secular or non-secular doctors and healers, as well as alchemists, witches, and shamans, or other traditions of magic. Now, heavily depending on the age and era you may be examining from a more historical point of view, there may be very little in the way of reliable medicinal or herbal remedies for any number of sicknesses or ailments. To be fair, there were a handful of texts that were known throughout the ancient world. Most famous of these texts would be the Greek Hippocratic Corpus and the Arabic Canon of Medicine. Each of these were a mixture of natural philosophy and religious ideology with a mixture of herbal knowledge as well. These were proto-medical texts that were a minority, but some of the information contained within these texts modern practitioners would easily recognize as magic today, such as the Greek humors off of the 4 elements, but these types of medical manuscripts were reserved for the wealthy and the elite during their time period. On the other end of the spectrum, the local village healers would more than have likely been working off of whatever limited folk medicine the healer knew or may have been passed down to them. And unfortunately, more often than not, most lay healers weren't literate, as literacy was not widely expressed by the majority of the peasantry of the early, middle, and late Dark Ages. So most of our predecessors would usually have no choice but to pass down their knowledge orally, as literacy was only becoming somewhat more common during the Renaissance. Now, we're just going to go with you're going to suspend your belief for this example. Now, if someone was very lucky and they found a doctor that would agree to teach them the knowledge on how to heal, the doctor may have seen untapped potential in this person for whatever reason, even though this person was part of the peasantry class and may have taken them on as a student for whatever reason. Maybe they just needed a helper. Either way, the knowledge would have been handed down from a mentor to a student. In this extremely unlikely scenario, the teacher would have then taught their student how to read and write. The teacher would more than likely eventually have their student make a handwritten copy of their personal medical manuscript for their future as a doctor. Some of the more common information that would go in this specific manuscript or this journal could range anywhere from possibly knowing how to grow and cultivate herbs, but much more likely how to identify and differentiate any number of different kinds of plants from each other in the wild. Now, before a student could go out into the field and start picking wild herbs, they would first have to establish a baseline of information that could be relied on for the future. This is just as true for our predecessors as it is for us today. Either way, this is a list of information that any herbalist should know. 1. Knowing the best time of year to start planting. 2. What is the best type of soil for a plant? A moist, dry, or rocky soil? 3. What is the best type of climate for a plant to grow in? 4. How much water or average rainfall does a plant need? 5. How large does a plant grow? 6. Is the plant an annual, a perennial, or bicentennial? 7. What is the best time of year to pick and harvest your plants? 8. What is the botanical name, family, and genus? Does the plant have any common names or folk names it's known by? 9. How long does the plant live for? 10. Where would these plants grow in a local geographic area? 11. When is the right time of year to harvest? 12. Can you harvest the plants more than once a year? 13. What is the proper method for harvesting? 14. How much could you harvest from any of the wild plants at any given time, as you would need to leave a certain amount of the plant in any given area to allow the seeds to fall, grow, and germinate naturally for next year? 15. How do you dry the herbs you collected? 16. How do you store the herbs? 17. What is the medicinal effect of each herb? 18. What are the side effects of each herb? 19. Is there any part of the herb that is either poisonous or toxic? 20. What types of plants are poisonous or toxic and have no medicinal value at all? This kind of information is a mixture of astrology and what we would recognize today as a farmer's almanac. Alongside each of the specific herbs' medicinal properties, what combination of herbs in what proportions could be used to make medicines for any number of sicknesses or ailments. This manuscript may also contain their predecessors' notes on their experiments showing their successes, but possibly also their failures. Knowing what to do is obviously important, but knowing what not to do is equally as important. So, in the modern day, why is the Herbalist Journal such an important and useful tool in the hands of a modern practitioner compared to that of our predecessors? And the answer to that is for the same reasons I've already stated. The lesson from the past is equally applied to the modern day to any herbalist. So what then separates the modern Herbalist Journal from our predecessors? First of all the additional medicinal information that we've been able to collect over the centuries. Second, if these journals or manuscripts on herbalism had any information on the spiritual or magical properties of these herbs, it was highly limited. This particular set of information would have been either a side note or it wouldn't have been even mentioned at all. Modern practitioners, on the other hand, would have made detailed notes on any and all information on the magical properties of herbs and made a point to make this information stand out, as it holds paramount importance to most modern day practitioners, and this is one of the major differences. So let me take a moment to exemplify this point. If the practitioner is using this herbal knowledge exclusively for the use of magic, then having a keen knowledge on the use of magical herbs and their correspondences will become very useful in the application of white, gray, and black magic. A good example of this is the use of herbs in the practice of magic when it comes to potions, elixirs, or oils, as well as using herbs to burn to release the magical properties for any number of magical rituals, as well as their use in either religious or ceremonial high magic, along with the use during the Sabbats, or even a tribute to any number of different deities or other outsiders. That is why, for those of you who want to practice herbalism, should start with plants and seeds that are purchased from a store to start a garden to gain familiarity with any number of different kinds of plants. That's why cultivating a garden is so useful. When you're picking these plants in the wild, as you will then know the shape and coloring of the leaf or the flower at different times of the year, what each plant smells like, and how each plant feels, such as the texture of the plant. Is it rough or is it smooth, etc.? Another use of the Herbalist Field Journal is to also write down the magical correspondences associated with each plant after you have accumulated enough research and resources to be sure of your findings and make sure they're correct, and then you can transfer them from your journal into your grimoire. Now, this specific field journal is going to mostly be used in your local area. Practitioners that will get the very most out of this journal are practitioners who live in a more rural area. Most people are going to either be living in the suburbs or the city setting, and unless you travel into areas that would give you the opportunity to be in nature, perhaps if you're a person who is an avid outdoorsman, such as a hiker, a camper, or a hunter, for the majority of people will not be out in the deep wilderness very often, if ever at all. So the field journal will become especially useful to you in whatever your normal surroundings are in your day-to-day life. All right. And we're done. Now, I'm probably over the 10-minute mark, and if I can't edit it down beyond this point, I really am sorry. But at least you got a whole lot of useful information on the Herbalist Journal. And keep in mind, there was at least another 20 minutes to 30 minutes that I cut out of this. So just remember that. So, as always, I wish you all the best of luck with your research, and go in peace.